Hello students, today I will give you an overview on how you can develop a literature map in qualitative research. It can equally important in qualitative and quantitative research to develop a literature map. However, today we are focusing only on qualitative research mapping. So first of all, I'll tell you the purposes of literature review. The first purpose of literature review is sharing the results of other studies. Secondly, you can also clarify your own research aims. Literature review tells you that how you can clarify your research aims. When you have an eye on the research aims of other studies, then you can make your mind that what research aims you can develop in your research. Thirdly, you can also provide a depth in the relevant subject. Finally, you have another important aspect of literature review is to develop a theoretical as well as the conceptual framework. You can also contribute to your research design. While reviewing the literature, you can have an idea that either you are following a qualitative research design or either you are following a quantitative research design. Finally, it also helps you how you can establish the importance of your study. It can also compare results with other studies. While reviewing the literature, you can have an idea that which studies have similar results as per your study, and you can also have an idea that which studies can have results in contrast to your studies. However, once you are doing the literature review, you must face some kind of challenges. What challenges you can face? First challenge you can have while doing literature review is you need to pull together all the studies. Secondly, you may find a challenge in interrelated ideas and developing connections. Maybe you can have also a challenge in searching of relevant material. For that, you must have good searching skills and advanced searching skills. Then you should know when to stop reviewing the literature. You must also have an idea then when your literature is enough. Creswell studies suggest us that a good literature review must be having 30 to 60 pages. And when you are not finding anything, that means your literature review is enough. It means there is a saturation point comes in reviewing all of the studies. This table gives you an overview that where in your thesis or in your project you can place your literature review. And the second column shows which criteria you must have to follow once you are placing your literature review. And in the third column, Creswell gives you examples that how you can place your literature review. So in the first column, Creswell suggests you that place your literature review in the introduction section. Here you can place all the available literature. Typically, you used to do this kind of review in qualitative study. In a separate section, you can also place your literature review. You can also develop a literature review separate chapter. Most likely, you used to do this kind of separate chapter in quantitative studies. Here, you need to build some kind of strong theoretical framework or conceptual framework. Then Creswell suggests you that place your literature review in a separate section. Thirdly, you can also place your literature review in a discussion section. This is a very important section. Here you can compare your findings with previous findings. Creswell said that here you need to have an inductive approach. Inductive approach means going from specific to generalizations. And typically this happens in qualitative studies. Another idea of Creswell regarding literature review is that it must be shaded throughout your study. For example, in your methodology, in your findings, and in your conclusions even. One of my teachers suggests me that you can even place the literature review in abstract. So it is very integral part of qualitative study. It is best suited also for narrative studies. In another video, I have given a full overview what narrative studies are. Next, I'll tell you what is the process of literature review. There are 4 steps involved in literature review process. First is information seeking and retrieval, evaluation, critical analysis, and research synthesis. I'll give you the full overview of all of these steps in the next coming slides. So here, information seeking and retrieval. There are 3 types of information material. The primary sources, the secondary sources, and the tertiary sources. So the tertiary sources involved the biographies and of biographies, for example, Oxford biographies. The secondary sources include some kind of indexes, abstracts, and bibliographies, and there comes the primary sources. The primary sources include journals, theses, and dissertations. So according to authors and researchers, you need to include all kind of resources while you need to seek for your information for a research purpose. Authors suggested some of the key points to review the literature. First of all, you need to read thorough literature. Then always start from broader concepts. You will identify more relevant works when you will start from the broader concepts. You will also identify some specific domains of your field. You will be able to develop a framework if you follow the above steps stated on the slide. Creswell also suggests that you need to ask from yourself some of the questions. For example, why you need this information while you are seeking information for your reviewing literature? How information will be used in your review? Focus on your research questions. Whatever your research questions are stated or explaining to you, just go with those keywords. Also formulate some kind of boundaries to your search. It is also one of the important steps to limitize or to have some limitations. It is also one of the important steps to limit your search. For example, you can limit your search by country, by year, by language. Finally, the final step in seeking information or retrieval, you need to build or develop the keywords. This is very, very important. Just have some key chunks or key important points from your topic and develop those keywords. For example, I'm giving you an example of how what is the topic. For example, I'm giving you this topic. What is the role of internet as an information source in primary level education? So I'm asking you what keywords you may use while searching your material. So you can, for example, you can have children in internet use, you can have information or learning and primary education. Then you can also use some of the keywords like internet and primary education. So you can see that this was the topic of my research and I used 3 types of keywords with different search strategies. So always when you have your topic, so try to develop your own keywords according to your subject. Next, you need to evaluate the studies before using into literature review. Don't use all type of studies. Be careful. You must check the authority, the currency of the studies, the objectivity of the studies, and the accuracy. So let me know what these 4 criteria are while evaluating the studies. First of all, the authority means you need to check who is the creator of the study. Currency means the study you are using, is it current, updated or not. Thirdly, objectivity means that is the information you are using is having a single perspective or is it having a multiple perspective. It should not have any bias in that while you are using studies in your literature review. Then it must be accurate. It should not have any grammatical mistakes, any spelling mistakes, or any other kind of bias. So after following these 4 steps, you can select your studies for reviewing. The next step is developing the critical analysis of your studies. You are done with the selection of the studies. Now read with a purpose. You need to develop some kind of academic arguments from your studies which you are reviewing. An academic argument should have some component. What are those components? Claim. Usually you find claims in the section of conclusion. Then reason. Reason is interpretation of the data. Evidence. You always find evidence or data in the findings section. And finally, the qualifiers. This table shows that you can have this kind of manual table in MS Excel file or maybe in MS Word, and then you can have in the first row you can have the full citation, then you can add the scope of the study you are reviewing, then you can add the purpose of the study you are reviewing, then the method, what the claims author made in that study, put in this column. What are the qualifiers have been used in the study, put in the next column. What evidence have been used and what reasons have been used by the authors while interpreting the data. This is very, very important. You need to develop this kind of table for all the studies you are reviewing in your literature. Let me tell you what are the 4 components of developing the critical analysis. The first one is claim. What is claim? It is necessary to build an argument. So what is claim? It is conclusion claimed by the author. For example, you should buy this study. If I ask you, you should buy this study, this is not very academic claim. Academic claim must have some kind of reasoning. For example, if I say you should buy this CD because this is one of the bestseller CD, that is my academic claim. And in research, we need to develop academic claims, not unacademic or non-academic claims. Academic claims should be supported by reasons and evidence. It is often available, or you can find this kind of claims in title, in abstract, or in conclusion section. For example, this is one of the example of academic and unacademic claim. You should read this novel because it is written by my favorite author. If I claim this, so do you think this is an academic claim? No, this is not an academic claim. The academic claim should be like this. You should read this novel because author of this won 3 book prizes. This can be an academic claim with a proper reasoning. So what is reason? Let me explain you what are the reasons. Reasons to make claims. There is always a reason behind an academic claim. You should have to look for the reasons. Is the reason relevant to the claim? Is the reason effective? Is the value invoked by the reason to be universal? It should not be a generic reason. It should be universal. Without reasoning, claim stands on a personal opinion. So reasoning should be objective based on the collected data. So what is evidence? You need to also find the evidence from the studies. Did authors support the reason with some evidence? Evidence should be accurate and in a sufficient quantity to support the reason. You need to look at, is data collected from reliable sources? Where data was collected? How was it collected? Did the researcher interpret it? Look at all these questions and try to find out all these answers from the studies you are reviewing. Next, what are the qualifiers? Qualifiers are usually the words which you can find in a good quality study. For example, if the author stated in the findings section the words usually, mostly, often, many, a few, that means authors are not making big claims. They have been very careful in building their claims. There are 2 types of claims, qualified claims and unqualified claims. Academic research claims should be qualified. Unqualified claims would be, for example, books by Isaac are enlightening. This is an unqualified claim because nobody can read all of the books by Isaac. So this is a very big and unacademic claim. What can be the qualified claim? For example, Many books by Isaac are enlightening. This is a sort of very good example of an academic claim. So always try to find the qualified claims from the studies you are reviewing. Then how we can synthesize the whole studies which we have reviewed in the previous steps. Combine all relevant studies together. Review those and prepare a report on all those collected studies. Build theoretical framework based on all the collected studies. A literature review is never just a list of studies. It's always an implicit argument about a body of research, or it is part of a larger argument. Here in a table, I show you some of the tasks of literature review. First, you need to build a summary of all the studies. Next, synthesize all the studies, then compare the studies, and finally write down a critique on the studies. So literature review is about creating other studies. It's not about listing studies. Your literature review needs to contain a balance of summary and analysis. This analysis occurs on two levels, individual studies and the field as a whole. I'm giving you here an example of a study from which I have collected some of the main aspects of reviewing the literature. For example, my study is how young people use electronic information. So I have collected some of the studies on technical and organizational aspects of using electronic information. Secondly, I collected some of the studies related to cognitive variables, information skills, process and navigation skills studies. Thirdly, I collected some of the studies on affective variable, motivation, user perspective and self-concepts. Fourthly, I found some of the studies which discussed social variables, economic factors, peer interaction and gender. So you could see that this one aspect have four kind of studies, and the four kind of studies have different perspectives. So you should also have your relevant aspect and find multiple aspects of literature on your relevant topic. How we can synthesize? This is an example of synthesis I'm showing you here. See, I have collected here three types of studies: Borage and Tombury study, Lee Francis study and Slavin study. And three studies stated that Piaget theory of stages of cognitive development and Erikson's stages of psychological development are commonly used for educational psychology courses. So three studies make this argument, and I have collected all those studies. So without making the individual claims or arguments, combine those studies which are saying the similar aspects. How you can compare and make some critique on the studies. This paragraph shows how you can make critique on the studies. The critical response to the poetry of Phillips Wheatley often registers disappointment or surprise. Some critique. This is the point of critique which I am emphasizing here. Some critics have complained that the verse of this African American slave is insecure. After reading the first sentence, you can see that after reading the first sentence, you can have an idea that second sentence is developing a critique on the first sentence. So this is what I'm trying to make. So this is how I'm making you understand that this is how we can develop the critique from the literature. The second example is about the comparison of studies. For example, I wrote, others in contrast have applauded Wheatley's critique of Anglo-American discourse, her version of literary models, so and so. So here I am telling that studies in contrast stated what about Wheatley's critique. So in that way you can make on one side the comparison of the studies, and the other hand you can make critique of the studies. Finally, I'm telling you how you can make a design of your literature map. You can make a literature map in a visual kind of summary. You can collect all empirical studies, discussions, or conceptual discussions. Make a flow chart, or you can make a cycle or top-bottom representation also, whatever you like. It may consist of qualitative and quantitative articles. You are doing a qualitative research, but that doesn't mean that don't collect the quantitative ones. Collect the quantitative ones as well. What is the procedure of designing? Think about broad subtopics researchers studied in your area. Secondly, map should be from broader to narrower. You can develop it through a pencil or maybe through a computer, but always go from broader to narrower. Give label to boxes and give references. One box may have only one reference. Gather last 10 years literature. However, classical or models on theories should be given importance. However, classical or models theories should be given importance. Later make connections. It may take many drafts to put all together. Here I am giving you an example. For example, you are reviewing a topic, justice in organization. See how I developed this map. First of all, I took the procedural justice as a broader concept. Then I divided into justice perceptions and justice in organizational change. Then I divided into the justice perception, I divided into two other subtopics, and the justice in organizational into past history. You can use any aspect for your literature review. You can find a gap and try making your own study. How you can describe this map? Once you develop the map, the next step is to describe that map and try to find out a conclusion of your literature review. For example, the map in the previous slide, I showed you a map in the previous slide, and how I am explaining that map. My topic adds to the overall literature on justice in organizations. This literature divides into 3 types of studies, dash dash dash. You can see that how under each topic subtopics are divided. I am giving the reference of the figure 2. My study will extend branch 2, which I showed you just behind here. Moreover, it will add to the subtopic of several branches of this map. For example, the figure I have shown you in the previous slide, one area not addressed in the map. Hence, there is a need for present study, which is going to be your own study. So here you can develop the gap. So this is everything regarding the developing your literature map. If you have any questions regarding this topic, you may ask in comments. Thank you very much.